Welcome to the Diary of a Scientist, the podcast where we deep dive into the fascinating world of neuroscience and uncover science based strategy to enhance everyday life. I am Dr. Shambhu Yadav, a neuroscientist and a stress biologist at Harvard, and I love sharing the insight from the field of neuroscience where we explore how the brain and its complex connection work with our body, shaping our thought, behavior, and overall health. While research keeps me busy, I make time to do all these things in my spare time, which is apart from my Harvard job. In this podcast channel, I take a deep dive into the wonder of the human brain, exploring how it shapes everything we do and how we can optimize it for a healthier, more fulfilled life. Join me as we uncover the science behind how we think, function, and how we can live better. I am excited to have you on this journey. Feel free to leave your questions, comments, and suggestions below. So today's episode will be based on feeling lost, which is I am going to give you a neuroscience insight. And I am so glad you are here. I want to talk about something I think we have all felt at some point of our life, feeling lost. It's one of those things that, when it hits, can feel like a heavy cloud hanging over you. But there is so much more going on under the surface than we might realize. So today we are going to dive into why we feel lost and how neuroscience can help us to understand what's happening in our brain when we feel this way. Now, I am not talking about the kinds of lost you feel when you have literally misplaced your key or forgotten where you park your car. I am talking about the deeper, more existential kinds of lost. The one where you were uncertain about the direction your life is going on. The one where you feel like you are wandering aimlessly, unsure of what next. And that kinds of loss can hit when you are dealing with the big challenges. That kinds of loss can hit when you are dealing with a big challenge, like a job transition, a relationship shift, or even just a time in life where everything seems a little unclear. It can feel disorienting, maybe even overwhelming, and it's hard, right? You don't just feel lost in your action or your thoughts, you feel it in your entire being. So let's talk about what actually happening in our brain when we are feeling lost. When we feel like we don't have a sense of direction. It's not just some vague abstract emotion. There is some real science behind it. When you are feeling uncertain or confused, your brain is essentially firing up different areas to help you make sense of it all. But sometimes those areas get a little scrambled. Imagine your brain as a big complex puzzle. Every part of it like a different piece that has a specific job. Some pieces handle emotion, others help with decision making, and still others work on keep your memory intact. But when you feel lost, it's often because one of or more of these pieces are not fitting together quite the way they should. Our sense of self, which is one of our understanding of who we are and what we are supposed to do next, that become foggy. And that's when the feeling of being lost take over. A big part of this puzzle has to do with the hippocampus, which is the part of our brain. So I'm not going to get all technical on you, but the hippocampus is the part of your brain that helps you remember things. But the hippocampus is the part of your brain that helps you remember things, like where you have been, where you are, and where you want to go. It's like your internal GPS. But when the hippocampus doesn't have enough information, or even it get overwhelmed, it can make us feel disoriented. If you are going through a rough patch or a life transition, your hippocampus is probably working overtime, trying to figure out how to make sense of everything. And when it's struggling, it's easy to feel like you have lost your way. And then there is the prefrontal cortex, which is another part of your brain that help you decision making and planning. You have that voice in your head and had tried to make sense of the choice in front of you. And that's your prefrontal cortex. When it's working properly, it helps you map out what to do next and guide you in making decisions that align with your value and your goal. But if that area of your brain is overloaded, stressed out, or just not functioning optimally, you might feel like you are stuck in the loop of indecision. And that loop is pretty strong contributor to that sense of being lost. You see, the brain does not like uncertainty. It's hardwired to seek clarity, predictability, and sense of control. So when things feel uncertain or confusing, it creates a stress. And a stress isn't just a mental experience, it's a physical too. Our bodies react to stress by releasing hormones like cortisol. And too much cortisol over time can actually impair the area of the brain that help us think clearly, make decisions, and even remember things. So stress can literally make us feel lost because it clouds our cognitive abilities. I know it sounds a little bit intense. You feel uncertain, stressed, and confused, and that lead to more stress, which further lead to more confusion, and before you know it, you are stuck in this cycle where you are not just unsure of what next, you are unsure of everything. And that can be really hard to break out of, especially when it feels like you are alone in it. But you are not alone. I promise you, you have all been there. And I want to share with you why this happened and how. Knowing this about the brain, we can start to break that cycle. The feeling of being lost doesn't have to last for forever, and that it's something we can work through. Understanding that the brain is continuously trying to make sense of everything, even when it feels like it's failing, can help us be a little more patient with ourselves when we are in that space. And there is actual and evolutionary reason why we feel lost sometimes. Think about it. Humans have evolved over thousands of years to be in control of their environment, to know where they are and what their next move should be, and what their next move should be. Our brains are wired to seek safety and predictability because back in day, not knowing where you were going to and what was around the corner could be dangerous. If you didn't have a sense of where you were headed or what was going to happen next, it could put you at risk. So the feeling of being lost isn't just a random emotional experience. It's a survival mechanism that kicks in when our brain doesn't have enough information to feel secure. Now that might sound a little dramatic, but think about it. When we face big challenges or uncertainty, our brain sees it as a challenge to survive. And in a way, that's exactly what it's doing. It's trying to protect us from danger by giving us that feeling of something not right when we don't have enough clarity. It's also important to note that the feeling lost can sometimes come from place of identity. When you are in the place where you usually sense of who you are, feel shaky, it's easy to feel lost. Maybe you have just gone through a big life change, like graduating, switching career, ending a relationship, or moving to a new city, and you don't quite know who you are in this new chapter. And that can be unsettling, right? Our brain like consistency, and when the piece of our identity are in flux, it's easy to feel disoriented. But being lost doesn't mean you are broken. It's actually part of being human. We are all trying to figure out our place in the world, and sometimes that journey can get a little confusing. But the beauty of it is that this feeling of being lost is not permanent. It's a sign that something needs to shift, whether it's a new perspective, a new goal, or new direction in life. And trust me, there are ways to start regaining that sense of direction. I will be diving deeper into that next few minutes. We will talk about how to reconnect with your sense of self, how to deal with stress, and how to find clarity when everything feels off in the air. But for now, I want you to remember this. Feeling lost is not a bad thing. It's a part of your brain doing its job. It's trying to help you figure things out. Even if it's making you feel a little uncertain, uncomfortable, the good news is that we can work with our brain to create a sense of clarity, to move through the fog, and to find our way again. So thank you for the watching, and the next remaining part I will continue with the next video.